Well, hello, Docs. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. How's your weekend? How was your weekend? I think it's Monday, if I remember correctly. Weekend good?
It is Monday, yes, and the weekend was good. Yeah, little biking, little running, a lot of hiking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got me on the steps this weekend. I went into the weekend with a big step lead for our monthly step challenge, and like Saturday night, while out of town at a birthday party in Fort Worth, I get a notification that Docs just pushed me out of first place. I had a 23,000 step lead when I last checked on Friday, and then you had two monster days, and now I'm trying to decide if I want to make a push this week or if I just want to let you have this month and try again next month. So
Yeah, I had a 20, a 25, and two 25s.
yeah, it was a monster comeback. So there's
It's
2 days left in the month, and I'm not feeling pushing you right now. So I might let you have it, but we'll see
Yeah,
how I feel tomorrow.
I think I figured out my solution to you trying to beat me.
Just to be
But we'll see. We'll
crazy
see.
active.
Yeah, I mean, really, it just took 3 days to get you out of there. So I just have to set aside 3 days.
You just have to stay within striking distance, and then with like a couple days to go in the month, just go ham. And I can't do what you can do. My body will break down. I'm carrying like a at least 100 extra pounds than you are, so yeah, I just can't keep up.
Yeah.
But I did. I'll say this: I made a trip down to Texas, and I made good use of it. I kind of doing a little research. I was polling my friends. Hey, I got a couple Democrat friends. I got a bunch of Republican friends. What are your thoughts on Kamala dropping out? Um, the key thing, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but I've learned that of the Texas Democrats I know, they have a clear favorite for VP. They like Mark Kelly, the astronaut slash Navy pilot slash
Mm.
senator from Arizona. That was the clear front runner for the Texas Democrat. Also, he apparently isn't big on taking everybody's guns, and they liked that. So
Okay.
doesn't play everywhere, but I
Yeah.
also got to talk about JD Vance with people that are Trump voters, kind of
Oh.
polling the room. And the key thing I got to say right now, this is big for me. I talk about misinformation and especially stuff you see on Twitter, TikTok. People take it and run with it. I preach that if you see something online that you haven't heard anywhere else, try to verify it. Go on Google and see if other people are saying this. Last episode, I made the assertion that JD Vance might have pleasured himself with a couch. I
You
saw
did.
it. I saw it right before we started recording, and I thought it was hysterical. I wanted it to be true. Like more than anything, I wanted it to be true. And the next day, it starts to turn out. The original post even cited page numbers. It was like on page 169 of his book, he talks about that was all I needed to see.
Mm.
I was sold. JD Vance is definitely the couch effer. Anyhow, turns out it wasn't in his book. The AP put out a report like 2 days later, an actual story, an official debunking saying, no, JD Vance did not have sex with a couch. And 30 minutes later, they pulled that down and his page is deleted. You cannot find that article now. Apparently, somebody pointed out to them that just because he didn't write about it, you can't definitively say that he didn't fuck a couch at some point in his
Okay.
life. So
Okay.
I think they're going to reword it and repost a story where it's going to say no, JD Vance did not write about having sex with his couch. But
Okay.
he's denying actually he's not denying it. John Oliver, I watched last night, and they reached out directly to his campaign and said, trying to get a comment, did he have sex with a couch? And he hung up on him, which is not
Ah,
a denial. In fact, that's kind of the way someone would act if they got caught having sex with a couch.
okay. Okay. So
So
you're not totally abandoning this.
I have no evidence that he's had sex with a couch, but it makes me happier than anything else happening in politics right now to think that possibly that's true. So I'm gonna continue to hope, but I have no evidence. So I do apologize before stating it, and I don't think I said allegedly. I like to say allegedly when I don't know, but I don't think I did in this case. So I
Mm.
apologize to JD Vance, his couch, ottoman, love seat, any other furniture in the house, and I was wrong. I should have fact checked that before saying it on the air. So I wanted to get that out of the way.
Okay.
In later episode, I'd love to talk about people getting their news from social media and not fact checking it anywhere, just like I just did. So that's a great example of what not to do. So we'll go into that later.
Well, way to
Um,
retract your statement there,
yeah,
Andy.
but
Way
dude,
to clear that up.
that's what I'm here for. I will own up when I say something wrong. But I will say, JD Vance. I don't know if there's been a more terrible first week as a VP candidate. Like he's they're bringing up stuff from the past, which is it's kind of standard. My thing is, I like to think that I like to think that people are smarter than they are. Like right now, Kamala Harris is vetting 4 possible candidates, maybe 5 for VP. So I think in my mind that means that they're going back and looking through everything these people have said. Have they said something that's going to be problematic? If they end up picking someone, everybody said something problematic. So if they pick Josh Shapiro, or I think his name is what is Shapiro from Pennsylvania, whatever his first name is. Like if he does have problematic things, I like to think that they've already talked about it and have an answer, like loaded up and ready to go. Hey, they're going to bring this up. Here's your answer. I maybe I'm giving people too much credit, but like the Vance stuff got pulled up easily, and it wasn't stuff from 10 years ago. It was stuff from 2 or 3 years ago. He mentioned crazy cat ladies running the government, and raging a lot of people. Meghan McCain, who is a Republican, came out immediately and was like, that's a dumb thing to say. She kind of jumped his butt. He went on Megyn Kelly's show afterward to try to clear it up and only dug the hole deeper. Not a good cleanup, but they clearly hadn't rehearsed what to do when this comes up.
Well, he
Uh,
also hated Trump at first, and now
well,
he's Trump's best friend. I
he
don't
said
know.
that Trump was America's Hitler 8 years ago. JD Vance is a weird guy, I'll say. I tried to look into him. He's changed his name twice. He's on his third name right now. Now,
Oh,
when he was young, his mom changed his last name to be that of her third husband, who had adopted him officially. So that one makes sense. And then
okay.
right before he graduated college or high school, he changed his last name to be his grandparents' last name. So he's not just picking
Oh,
names out of thin air. He's changed it to, but the guy's had 3 names. He's kind of, it
yeah.
almost seems like he's led different lives. See, there are emails from back in the like the George Floyd protest where he's saying, like, I hate cops. Like, just based off the experience I've had with cops, I can't imagine how poor it is or how bad it is to be a
Yeah,
black
yeah.
person dealing with cops. And all the Trump stuff. So the guy,
He's a
he
grifter for sure.
he strikes me as like a populist grifter that just is going to say whatever he needs to say to continue to move up and gain power, and that scares the heck out of me. And I think a lot of politicians are like that, and they're definitely that on the left and right. But right now, JD Vance is in focus, and he seems to fit that bill. So does that
Yeah.
coming out of the convention? You're always supposed to have a convention bump. It's like a little honeymoon bump where your favorability ratings go way up, and you're kind of soaring on cloud 9 for a couple of weeks. He is the first person to come out of the convention with a negative favorability rating. He was like -5 points. So not been great for him. There's still talk that Team Trump is looking to dump him. My favorite thing, apparently Trump did not want to pick him. Trump wanted to pick Bergstrom. The guy's name. He's a South Dakota or North Dakota governor, and he's the most boring of the picks. He was like another Mike Pence. Like kind of if you're worried that Trump's going to do crazy stuff, don't worry. Doug Bergstrom, whatever the guy's name is going to be
Bergstrom.
there.
Bergstrom.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
who he wanted to pick. And apparently Eric and Don Jr. were the two that like really held his feet to the fire. Like, you got to pick JD Vance. So apparently he's mad at them right now. This is all conjecture. I don't know if this is true, but that's what's being said.
Well,
So
I got through 6 chapters of his audiobook.
how was it?
Boring. I
Okay.
turned it off and I was like, I'm not revisiting this. It's boring. He just kind of goes through his whole family history. I don't know if it gets exciting. If there was couch fucking involved, I probably would be more excited
It
about
would have kept
that.
me listening if I were you. But
Sorry, Shannon.
did you experiment with your couch at all the other night, or is your couch still a
No, I don't
virgin?
have big enough cushions.
Okay.
It's hard. I'll have to get a new couch.
Go shopping for just the right
The
one.
couch isn't sexy enough.
Got to have that appeal. So you should try like a dark couch. I hear those are never mind. Never mind. So yeah, so that's what's happening in Trump world. Trump said last night some stuff about, Christians vote for me. I'm only asking you to vote for me one more time and you'll never have to do it again. And people after 2020, I don't think it's wrong to think, but people were like, what is he saying? Is he going to cancel all elections? And then he went on Laura Ingraham tonight and she asked him point blank, she was trying to tee it up for him, like, hey, people are saying that you're going to cancel all future elections. And he just kept like avoiding answering the question. And she kept trying to redirect him and be like, well, they're trying to say that you're going to cancel. And he just kept, yeah. And, Jewish people, any Jewish person that doesn't vote for me should have their head examined, and kept going in weird directions. And it's like those interviews with her, with Hannity, like there's times where they tee him up for a softball, like just, this is an easy one. We're going to clear this up. And he refuses to take the bait and hit it out of the park. And he trails off in a weird way. So it's got to be frustrating, and it's got to be very similar to like dealing with Biden. If you were on Biden's staff the last 6 months, and you're like, just go out there and just be normal and don't say anything, and then he goes out there and starts trailing off, like both are probably equally frustrating. I'm gonna
Well, it's him
guess.
and JD Vance just like shooting themselves in the foot left and right.
Well, and I think Trump's like in Trump's mind, he's allowed to go out and say dumb stuff and then double down on the dumb stuff. That's what he does, and the people love him for it. But it only works if you have a running mate that's like the safe guy to make you think that everything's going to be all right.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Okay.
If let's say Trump picked Nikki Haley, like, well, Nikki Haley's probably the only one that I can think of that would actually bump him in the polls a little bit.
Oh,
Other
she
than
would have.
that, like, I think he's kind of set in stone. He has his followers. He has people either love him or they hate him, right? They're either going to vote for him or they're not going to vote for him. There's not really an in between. Everybody has already made up their mind.
I disagree. So, and this we can talk about once Kamala picks her DEI pick. Once she picks her VP, we can talk about this whole Kamala was a DEI vice president. But like the whole point when you pick a vice president is you're trying to expand who's going to vote for you. You're trying to bring other voters in that maybe wouldn't have voted for you, but with the addition of this VP, you're expanding your electorate basically.
Yeah.
And Trump did that with Mike Pence. You know, Mike Pence brought in like the Christian conservatives and the people that were a little worried. And I think Trump still he wasn't going to get Nikki Haley. She's not going to be on his ticket. But that guy from North Dakota, Doug Bergstrom, I can't say his last name, but you
Bergstrom,
can.
yeah.
Yeah, Bergstrom. That possibly could have expanded the base. There were a couple that even Tim Scott, who I'm not a fan of, could have expanded the base just a little bit with African American voters. He brought in what he did is he made a confidence pick. He was beaten Biden by so much. He said, "I don't need to expand the base. I want to bring in the guy I like the best." And he brought in Vance, and Vance brings no new voters to Trump's orbit. So he kind of, I think, had he known he was going up against Kamala, I think it would have been a different pick. But that's where Kamala's at now. Is like I'm getting tired of everybody saying, oh, Kamala was a DEI. They only picked her because of this or that. Yeah, no, that's how every vice president is picked, is with the intent to expand who's going to vote for you. So speaking of that, we're going to get into Kennedy in a minute. I spent so
Oh
much
yeah.
time today trying to learn about RFK. I didn't even get to his vice president, and her name is like Shanahan or something.
Yeah, I
I
think
got it
so.
on. I got it
I
pulled up. So,
didn't get that far. I
yeah.
started I started out and I went to our graphics team and I was writing Kennedy a letter and I went to our graphics team and I had this made up
That's
and
that's our graphics team. Is that
that's our
is that
graphics team. Yeah,
that
really
sounds like you made
it's
that.
Sam in accounting. He's doing
Okay,
graphics work.
that's fantastic.
Um
Did
and
you fax that to him, or how did you get that to him?
I just told him he drew it up for me.
No, I mean, but to Kennedy, how did you get that to RFK? Did you send like a
Oh
courier
no.
pigeon
I was
or?
writing him a letter
Okay,
and my feelings. And then I was like, as I was listening to stuff and researching him, and two interesting things. Not only did he have brain worms that ate part of his brain,
saw that.
he also has mercury poisoning,
Okay,
the fish in the water, and he says that has given him some kind of cognitive decline as well. So he's not right in the head for like two reasons there. But I did go to his website, and that's when I
okay.
decided to like trash the letter. And he actually looks pretty good on paper. Like I don't have a lot of besides the vaccine thing. I'm like
So I'll say
he's
this:
good.
the work that he did for the environment, for waterways and all that, he did a lot of good things. Like if he stuck to that, I think he would be a very well respected person all around, especially in the Democratic Party. Um, his website, and I have it pulled up right now. By the way, his VP is Nicole Shanahan, who is an attorney and tech entrepreneur in the San Francisco. So she's a San Francisco lefty. Um, but yeah, not a whole lot. Apparently, and I'm reading a bunch of allegedly stuff, but she's got a lot of money and she is financing their campaign. She's donating most of what they're getting is coming from her,
He's
and
his
it's
second biggest donor.
yeah, and even there was an article where like he mentioned he's like, oh yeah, no, I see her every now and then. I don't really talk to her much, so it doesn't seem like they're much of a partnership from what I'm getting. I don't. She doesn't seem to be in the picture very much. I couldn't find any like interviews with her. That one thing I saw last week where she was saying that the DNC was stealing people's money that donated to Biden. But other than that, she's kind of I have nothing on her. RFK, the one thing I'll say is if you look at his the policies. Here we go. Let me get to this real quick. There are a bunch of lefty policies. The problem I have, and I should have checked out Kamala's website. I don't know if they have a platform up and running yet. But I get real sick of it's populism, but Trump did a whole bunch of, we're going to drain the swamp. We're going to make housing cheaper. We're going to bring back the manufacturing jobs. And that's awesome. Tell me a little bit about how you're going to do it. That's my big thing. Like just a little bit. Like
Actually do it. Yeah.
yeah, well, and like one of Trump's when he was running before 2020, he said he was going to lower gas prices by like $1 or something like that. And they
He's
asked him
saying that again.
well,
He said that again.
they asked him point blank right before 2020. They said, "Well, how are you going to do it?" And he said, "Well, I'm not going to tell you. Like, I've got it. You got to elect me, and then I'll show you." And it's like it's just like his health care plan. Like Trump had a great health care plan that was better than Obamacare, and he'd tell you all about it in 2 weeks, and that kept happening, and he never told us all about it, and there was never any plan. And that's I tried so hard to find interviews today where RFK Jr. was telling us how he was going to do any of these things because I like some of them, and he wants to lower housing prices. He wants to do stuff for the environment. I'm all about that. How are you going to do it? And that's my only thing. Now, if Kamala fails to give any details in her, I'll rip her for that too. Trump in 2020, they didn't even put out a platform for Trump, so I doubt that his. I haven't looked for it, but I doubt it's very informative. But that's my only thing. He wants to home ownership in the American dream. He's saying he wants to do government-backed 3% mortgages, which
Yeah.
that scares me. The housing collapse of 2008. A lot of people like to put that on George W. Bush, the financial collapse, and a lot of it was him. He cut a lot of regulations on Wall Street, but you could make the argument that some of the policies that Clinton put in the 90s, where it was trying to make it to where poor people had just as easy a chance to get a house, and you didn't need to have as much money to put down, and this and that.
Right.
And a lot of people got houses that really couldn't afford it, and it ended up catching up, and we had a housing collapse. So as
Yeah.
much as I want everyone to be housed, like if you do what he's doing is kind of the Clinton 90s playbook on houses, and that could lead to another housing collapse in, a decade.
Well, he also wants to make it wants to make less incentive for like these big corporations to buy up all the houses, which is why housing is so expensive right now.
All for that. And also apparently there's a lot of like just Chinese citizens and corporations buying.
Um,
That's a thing where, and I think it's Republicans that are pushing for that right now. But like, why are we letting foreign countries or foreign anybody buy land? Like a lot of our
yeah.
land, I live in Oklahoma, and a lot of our farmland is being purchased by China. And like,
Whew.
that's a little weird. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that. And there's got to be exceptions. If you have someone who's from China and they've come over here to, be an advisor or counsel for a company, they should be able to have a house to live in. But like one house, they can't buy up all the real estate in the area because that's definitely driving up housing costs. So if he's trying to do something about that, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some other stuff. He wants to regenerate soil, get toxicity out of food. He created the Waterkeeper Alliance, which I am completely behind.
Okay.
He wants to redirect military spending to infrastructure, healthcare, education. Um, there was something weird. It was he wants to establish addiction healing centers on organic farms.
I heard somebody I heard somebody
What is
talking
that?
about this, and it sounds awesome if you're really rich. Like if you're super rich and you need help getting off, say you're on a prescription drug you're addicted to. Most people, I think what I saw might not have been correct, but it was like people would go there and live for like a year or two to, recenter themselves or something along those lines. And most people can't, even if it's free to go there, you can't bail on your job, family, whatever it is, and go away for a year or two and then come back. It's not really
Right.
feasible. But I like the fact that he's attacking, like, Republicans a lot of times want to lock up people that have health addictions, I guess. I like the fact that he's attacking. Hey, let's not lock them up. Let's get them help. So I'm good with that. He's
Yeah.
also $15 minimum wage,
Oh yeah.
which I don't know if 15 is right, and it's by state. Like in California, the minimum wage needs to be higher due to the cost of living than it does in Oklahoma or Texas. So I don't think a national minimum wage is the way to go.
Right.
But
What is it in Texas?
it's like $8, maybe 8.50 or something like that. It's not
Yeah.
enough.
How do you live on that?
You don't, and I my a good friend of mine was over in I think Italy recently or somewhere in Europe, and they were talking about how they have a living wage over there, and
Hmm.
every even so, there's no tipping at restaurants because the servers all get a living wage and this and that.
Oh,
Tell me how fantastic it was, and it's like that. It's another kind of like universal health care. It seems like that's something we should be able to figure out over here. Like we're the
Yeah.
richest country in the world. We should not have as many just people that can't make their bills having to choose to pay the bill or buy food for their family. Like that's not something we should be dealing with in this rich of a country, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I agree. I agree. I mean, yeah, everybody should have at least food. And
Hmm.
I don't know how many starving children are in this country, but there's like 750 something million starving people in the world right now.
Yeah. One, I saw something. This blew my mind, but might have already told you this. But to be in the top, we talk about the top 1%, the 1% in America, the billionaires. I hope this is correct, and if not, I'll check myself next time. But to be in the top 1% of the world, do you know how much money you have to make in America to be in the top
Like
1% of the world?
$40,000.
$36,000.
36, yeah.
So if you
Okay.
make over 36 grand a year, you're in the top 1% of the world. You're poor as shit in America, but compared to
Yeah.
anybody else, you're doing quite good. You're
Yeah.
you're elite. So that, and then really he wants to regulate some stuff. The Republican in me was always like, we need to cut regulations. I was big on cutting regulations, but that's how we get like the 2008 financial collapse. Cutting
Yeah.
regulations has never worked well for us. It sounds great, but we kind of need somebody keeping an eye, especially on Wall Street, to make sure that they're not doing any crazy stuff that's going to end up hurting the
Yeah.
economy.
Well, I mean, not just Wall Street, but like, remember that there was like that pig processing factory in Fort Worth? And for like decades, they were just dumping the pig blood into the river.
Oh, well, and that's part
I
of what
mean,
Trump undid a lot of that because I think Obama had put in I don't remember the bill, but it was something about protecting our natural waterways, and Trump
mhm.
undid it. And at the time, I was trying to figure out what does this cause? And I was, oh, companies can just dump their waste into the local creeks, and it'll feed into the bigger rivers. And
Yeah.
yeah, we're just
Yeah.
back to that
Just,
now. So we had a
oh
grip on
God.
that.
Yeah. I mean, there's some like write-offs, not write-offs, but like some companies are like immune from that via Congress. And I forget which ones it was,
Mm.
but yeah, it was kind of crazy to think about these companies just being able to like do whatever they want. And like, oh,
Yeah,
we're not going to store this waste
we
and
don't.
process it properly. We're just going to dump it in the backyard and let it seep into the soil. Okay.
Yeah, no, well, we don't want to put the financial burden on these companies because then
Yeah.
they won't hire as many workers. There's a talking point to argue for cutting all these regulations, but I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah.
The other thing I saw, cut drug costs in half to bring them in line with other nations. Love it, love it.
Sure.
How are you going to do that? Because you can't, the government can't order drug companies to set a price. Like I
Right.
wish, like now Congress can get involved and like what Biden did with, the House and the Senate, and they all got together and put a $35 cap on insulin. It's fantastic. And maybe it's that easy. Maybe somebody could come in and just do it. My problem is still you got to have Congress, the House and the Senate vote for this to go through. And who's in their pockets? Big Pharma. So again, looking at his policies, there's a lot of stuff I like on here.
Yeah.
I'm curious how he's going to do almost all of it because he's not heavy in the detail. And I spent so much time today trying to find him talking about how he would make this happen. And part of that's not on him. When he goes on a good show, I hate to say mainstream media, but they normally end up asking him about his anti-vaccine stances, which that's the confusing one to me. He repeatedly goes on shows and they make a comment about him being anti-vax, and then he says, "I'm not anti-vax," and then I love it because several of them then play clips of him saying that there is no such thing as a safe vaccine. Uh, so his whole "I'm not anti-vax." I'm kind of like that's what you're known as. Like anybody who's heard the
Yeah.
name RFK thinks you're anti-vax. You should really clear this up a lot better. But
Yeah. He says there's no safe vaccines,
yeah, and that's what
no
that
safe and effective vaccines.
I kept going down rabbit holes. I was trying to learn what he is running on,
He
but then I
runs in
kept,
circles with it.
well, and it was my fault because then I would find, oh, here's one thing he said that they fact checked him. It's not right. And then I'm going down that rabbit hole. I got stuck forever. I'm not a scientist. I've never done testing or microbiology. I don't know any of this stuff. But his whole thing is he was saying, and he's gone on several shows and said that they don't test vaccines for safety and they don't do it against a placebo, which is the only way to test it. He says that a lot. And then I found all these doctors that are like, no, of course they do. They don't test all of them against placebos because if you're coming out with there's a new flu vaccine every year based off last year's strand. If you're coming out with that, you don't test it against a placebo, you test it against the previous year's. So there's times
Yeah.
when using a water or saline placebo is not the right way to do it. It's not the most effective way. New vaccines, they almost always test against a water or saline based placebo, and that was his big claim is they don't test for safety, and if they do, they don't do it with a placebo. And then I was able to find all the MMR, all the big vaccines that we use got initially got tested against the placebo, and now they get tested against the previous year's version, which, according to the doctors and smart people I listened to today, is the right way to do it. I'm not a doctor. I don't know for sure,
You're
but
not?
I wish I stayed at a Holiday Inn though once, so I think I'm almost qualified. But and that's his all of his stuff was he said this, and then a doctor comes out and says, "Oh no, actually they do," and then he slightly moves the goalpost and says, "Well, they didn't do it for blah blah blah," and it got so confusing, and I'm in the weeds with it. I kind of gave up real quick on trying to figure out if he's right on any of this stuff.
I also saw something where he said they were giving like 127 vaccines to children at birth or something like that.
So
And somebody pushed back on him and was like, yeah, my daughter just got 10 vaccines or something.
I
And
think
I think I turned it off at that point. I was like, okay, this is ridiculous.
one there was a time when the vaccine schedule was more condensed when they hit them with a lot of shots in a shorter period of time, and then over the years following the guidance of the blah blah blah, the CDC or the National Institute of Health, whatever, they've spread it out to where they are spread out more, and it seems like that's a good thing. And if he started the fuss that made that happen, then good job, Robert Kennedy. Like, way to go.
Well,
Um,
vaccines are safer than they ever have been in history, right?
I think again,
Oh,
I'm listening to people that are telling me they're doctors on YouTube. They
I
might
would
not be
imagine.
doctors.
I
Yeah.
also have some stats here.
Okay.
Vaccines have saved an estimated 154 million lives over the past 50 years. This includes 146 million lives of children under 5 years old, with 101 million of those being infants under 1 year old. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing that it saved more than it killed.
It did, and like
Vaccine.
I so badly don't want to get into the COVID vaccine because again, I'm not a doctor. I don't know. But it seems like everybody agrees that it saved more lives than it hurt.
Yeah.
One thing I wish that they were real clear about this because I keep reading that to be labeled safe and effective, that's a threshold. Safe and effective doesn't mean zero people have adverse reactions. That means it's
Okay.
within a certain threshold. Like out of every 8,000 shots, there's one person that has an adverse reaction. That is then classified safe and effective. From reading about this today, I guess there's everybody's body's different, but there's some people that have adverse reactions to Tylenol or Advil or
Yeah.
just about anything. So
Yep.
if you put any drug out there, 1 out of 1 million people is going to have an adverse reaction. So were there people that had adverse reactions or vaccine injuries to COVID? It seems like it. Like it seems
Yeah.
like for sure. And
Absolutely.
myocarditis was a deal with especially young men now. And this was 2 years ago, but somebody fact checked Joe Rogan on this and they ended up pulling it up on his show and looking at it. But it's like, yeah, it gave myocarditis to far less kids than COVID did. COVID causes myocarditis because it's
Oh,
all the spike protein. I'm not prepared to talk about what a spike protein is or
no
what it
clue. Yeah.
does, but COVID has it, and the vaccine mimics it, I guess, and it can have the same reaction. So
Okay.
anyhow, so I tried today to stay out of COVID vaccines at all and just look at other stuff. There was a country, and I can't remember what country it was that he went over there and convinced everyone, including their prime minister, to stop doing the MMR vaccine, and then a short time later, they got a big rise in cases. Like 83 people died, and the prime minister came out and like pointed the finger at RFK Jr. and said he came over here and convinced us not to do it. So the article I was reading was like, there's blood on his hands. I'm not prepared to go that far.
Oh yeah.
But he's an
Yeah,
odd
he's
guy.
calling for Fauci's head.
Yeah, no, there's people that hate Tony Fauci. Yeah, again, I so bad like I am so done arguing with people about COVID. Like the last year or two of anti-vax COVID stuff, like when people would tell me about the COVID vaccine is the devil and it's got snake venom in it and this and that and
Maggots.
look, yeah, there's a quarter sticking to my arm because of the vaccine. I just started agreeing with people. I was like, 100%, like COVID vaccine's the devil. I'm not, I can't, I don't have the energy for it, and I'm not a doctor, so I have no ability to really argue any of the science behind this. Um, I will say my biggest fear with RFK, the reason that I instinctively was not a fan, and it bothers me. There's a big overlap between Trump world and RFK world. Steve Bannon, are you familiar with Steve Bannon?
Oh yeah.
He's kind of the mastermind
Wait,
behind
is he in
Trump's.
jail right now?
He is in jail right now, but he
Okay,
was the mastermind behind Trump winning in 2016. I think he was his first
sure.
chief of staff. He had some role in the White House, and he's the person who convinced RFK to run. He
Oh,
lighted this fire under him, and he wanted him to be a chaos agent in the election. Now, Republicans tried this in 2020 with Kanye West, and it was on paper, it seemed like a good idea. Get Kanye to draw black votes away from Biden. The problem is Kanye started going crazy at about that time, and it didn't really work. I think Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, was the one that was like advising Kanye all the way through that campaign. So it's
right.
not surprising that they tried it again. There's pictures with RFK standing with Michael Flynn and all these Trump world people. RFK's biggest donor is also Trump's biggest donor. This guy Timothy Mellon or Melton, I can't remember the
Saw
guy's
that,
name.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
But that guy also donates to Biden too.
so I saw he gave 20 million to RFK and 20 million to Trump, but I didn't see anything about a Biden donation. So
Oh,
if that's true,
maybe I'm wrong.
you should
Maybe
look
I'm
that
wrong.
up. Yeah, let's clear that up.
Um,
But that and then yeah, that phone call with that I think it was RFK's son leaked it online where it was Trump talking to RFK on speakerphone. And at one point, Trump says, "We're gonna win," and RFK says, "Yes" or "Yeah, we are," or something along those lines. I don't know. I feel like he's in disguise at the moment, and he's trying to sabotage Biden and now Kamala. His numbers have plummeted since Biden got out of the race, though. You find anything on
on
this guy?
base.
Yeah. So he had
Oh,
his base was people on both sides that said these two are too old. I can't believe these are our candidates.
um,
Blah blah blah. Well, when Kamala became the candidate, some people that were Democrats and voting for RFK suddenly, hey, we got a young person. So they jumped back on the Democratic ship, and now he's truly, according to this week's polls, which are not the final word, but as of right now, he is only pulling a large majority of votes from Trump. So I
I
wouldn't
see
be
8.7 for Kennedy right now.
8.7. He
8.7.
was in double digits in some states.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, right. I think the writing is about to become real clear that he's hurting Trump more than he's hurting Kamala. I'm going to say Biden instinctively, but I think quickly Trump is going to try to do whatever he can to get Biden to drop out of the race and endorse him. I think that's 100% what that phone call was about. It didn't work out, and maybe RFK was just hearing him out. Which if that I'll hear you out,
Yeah.
and then he said no, sorry, I'm not dropping out. And if that's the case, awesome. But I would not put money on it that RFK will still be in the race at the end of this. I think he might be on Team Trump. That's my fear.
Okay. No, I kind of got the feeling that that was Trump doing all we need is 417 more votes. That's one more than we need. It was one of those.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, apparently this was stuff I saw today, but there was actually like an agreement drafted, and it had RFK Jr. was going to be the head of the NIH, which is like the biggest government
Uh,
organization, has the biggest budget.
we're back.
All right, yep, sorry, time limits. But anyway, yeah. So all the stuff with Trump, the phone call with Trump and RFK, the supposed offer of a position, which apparently whoever was trying to make that deal, that you drop out and endorse us, we'll give you the head of the NIH. Somebody kind of made that deal and offered a position, and somebody else in the campaign who was smarter looked at that and said, "Hey, that you can't do that. You can't offer him a position in return for him dropping out and endorsing." Now that happens all the time. Every time, like when Pete and Amy Klobuchar and all them dropped out of the race, like it's an understanding that we're going to drop out and endorse you, and you're going to reward us with with a position in your cabinet. It's a wink nod thing. You just can't put it on paper. And I think somebody in his campaign saw that, or maybe it was somebody in RFK's campaign. But when somebody saw that what they were trying to do, it's like you can't make it this obvious. That's not how it works. So that scares me. And real quick, I found it. It was in Samoa in 2019. That whole the measles outbreak, vaccine rates had
Oh.
steeply dropped because of RFK going there and blah 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 blah.
Wait,
But
what did
anyhow,
he do?
there's consequences to this, and like certain stuff like polio and measles and all that. It's like we're glad those are gone. We've been all getting the shots for a long time, and I don't think there's any problem. And I'm sure someone who's very in depth with anti-vax will say, no, the blah blah blah, the rate of this dropped after we all started taking it. There's probably something. There's some
There's
correlation.
there's antidote. There's anecdotal evidence.
Anecdotal, yeah, but
Anecdotal, yes.
yeah. So I don't know. I'm a dummy. I see doctors saying, "Hey, what RFK is not saying, or what he's saying is not correct.
Yeah.
Here's why." And then they use a bunch of big words. And it's almost like religion at that point. It's like I have to choose to have faith that these doctors are not lying to me.
Right.
And there are people who, for one reason or another, sometimes based off experiences, have just decided, like, I'm not trusting doctors. Nope,
Well,
doctors are only there to end. I get it. I get how there's,
well, hold on.
skepticism
It's
there.
science, right? So RFK doesn't believe the science about vaccines, but he believes the science about climate change.
He thinks that the science behind vaccines is being manipulated.
Hmm. For what
That's
purpose? What does he think?
to make money. And I've not heard him say this, but I think a person that believes this would generally say that they're trying to make you sick and keep you sick because there's money in treating a chronic sick disease and not in curing a disease. So sick people that aren't going to die but are just going to have something for the rest of their life, like that's a money machine for
Yeah.
big pharma, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
I think, and I'm probably articulate. A real anti-vaxxer is going to get mad. Well, I know one in particular that's going to get really mad watching me try to make this argument because I'm saying it all wrong.
Uh-huh.
But the theory is they're not trying to kill us; they're trying to injure us and make us then rely on them for the rest of our lives, and
Oh,
money every month for prescriptions or
oh,
follow-up appointments or whatever.
okay.
I think makes sense.
I mean, if they want to do that, all I got to do is feed us sugar, which is what they've been doing for how
That's
many years
and,
now? Yeah.
and that's
Feed us
another.
sugar and all the bullshit they feed, all this toxic chemicals. Hold on. Did I tell you about this app I downloaded?
Oh no, you haven't told me anything about this
It's
app.
called Yucca. And you scan whatever you want, any barcode at the grocery store, you scan it and it gives you a score from 0 to 100, and then it's like good, bad, whatever, excellent, horrible. And dude, I threw
Like
all
it's
my
just
sunscreens away. So like all my sunscreens had like less than 10, and they're horrible for you. And then you go in and you can look at like the ingredients in it, and it shows you the ingredients that are hazardous or like
okay.
moderate risk or whatever, and then you can
Does it
read on them. And most of them are like the European Union has banned this chemical because a lot of it's like infertility and like
mhm.
hormonal adjustments, and like it's really weird. Like my grocery shopping is way different now.
I'll
I
bet.
threw all my sunscreens away, and finding a sunscreen that this app doesn't say is bad for you is hard.
That's what I wish I had looked in because I can't remember. It's been a while since I've heard it, but there's all these things that are very common in our daily lives that like are banned in Europe. Like Europe will not let you put this ingredient in food, and like we're
Yeah.
eating it nonstop. It's in everything, and there's lots of weird stuff like that. Even I think it was bread. Just the amount of sugar in bread, I believe, is one thing I read where it's just like, but they wouldn't even call it bread in Europe. Like it
It's
wouldn't be.
crazy.
It'd be classified a cake or a sweet treat,
Right.
But we're America and we do it our own way. But yeah, the rest of the world wouldn't tolerate that. And that's like conspiracy theories. It bothers me because like I believe like I you want to talk about JFK sometime. Like was Oswald the only shooter? Like I got all kinds of thoughts about that. Like that's my favorite conspiracy theory. Okay, and there's some good ones. And like what's gone on with the food chart, like the food pyramid, and like you need to have 7 servings of grain a day or whatever it was.
Oh, they
And it
flipped
turns
it. They
out,
just flipped it. Like for
well, they
forever
did
we were doing
now.
it this way, and then they flipped it upside down. Like,
Yeah.
no, you need the opposite.
But that's where like then you can get into, was that the government purposely trying to give us diabetes or blah 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 to where we're
Mhm.
now, or was it them being morons, which I
Yeah,
almost always I default
morons.
to like, they were stupid, they didn't know any better, like the whole thing with eggs, where like eggs are good cholesterol, eggs are bad cholesterol,
Yeah,
well, eat the white but not the yolk, and now I
yeah,
think
yeah,
now we're like on all, the whole egg is good.
yeah.
And I think there's a point where they don't know. They think they know, and then they get new evidence. The good thing about science is you get new evidence that contradicts what you think you know, and then you change based off it. When they don't
Exactly.
change based off it is the problem. Um, but like
That's what science is
that,
all about, right?
but
Is people trying to disprove other people's theories and like running their own tests from what other scientists have done just to try and make sure that they're right. And if they find out they're wrong, then there's more scientists come in and do other studies, and it's an ongoing like adjustment of the
yeah.
proper outcome, right?
Well, and then I wish I'd read up on this before we talked about it now. But like on the food pyramid and the big servings of grain, like I listened to a podcast or read something once, I don't remember which one it was, but like it's important for the US that our farmers keep producing a high amount of, like, more than we need of certain things, grain,
Yeah.
corn, ethanol, like that kind of stuff. And it's in case of time of war, like, when we might need to suddenly pump out all this stuff. So we subsidize our farmers. We give them all kinds of tax breaks and all that to make more, even though a lot of it's going straight to the trash or whatever it is. But we need them to keep making it on schedule to where if we ever need it, we got it.
Right.
And then somebody gets the idea of like, hey, we've got all this extra grain we need to make. Let's make that a bigger part of the food pyramid. And like,
Right.
was that an evil plan, or was that like, hey, they didn't check with anybody doctor wise, and they were like, hey, let's just start telling them to eat more? Like, again, I always err to like the answer is going to be something stupid that is upsetting with how dumb it is, but like they just didn't check with the doctor. They were like, oh, just feed them more grain, that'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like the cigarette lobby, right? Remember the cigarette lobby back
Yeah,
in the day? And then all those same doctors that were going on all the television shows or radio shows or whatever, they ended up, it was the exact same people doing the sugar lobby. Or was it the
dude.
climate change? It was either the climate change
Not
or
the
yeah.
stuff that I've the stuff that I've heard, and most of it on Joe Rogan, but I've then looked it up and confirmed it. Like the stuff that they were doing, like the sugar lobby, like blaming fat
Yeah.
for all kinds of stuff. And so we're all increasing our sugar intake, but like watching our fats. And like
And we all
fats are
know
the weirdest thing to me. Like I've been like on a diet since January 1st. And like I'll talk to my sister and she's like, what are you having for breakfast? And I'll tell her and she's like, you need to put a fat in there. And I'm like, trying to lose weight, like I'm eating lean. And she's like, you need a healthy fat. Like put some butter in your coffee or some heavy
yeah.
whipping cream. And it's like so against what I think I know, but it turns out that I don't know what I'm talking about. So, and especially with all this, like I love that we're sitting here talking about conspiracy theories, but like we're also adding our own 2 cents to most of them, and we don't know what we're talking about.
Totally.
It's the
Totally.
joy of conspiracy theories can be fun until like people start getting hurt.
I'm
Like the,
doing
the
keto.
QAnon
Like I'm
stuff.
eating all fat right now. I'm doing
I wish we could get back to the good fun days of conspiracy theories, like just the fun ones. Like it got to a point like we got people sending pipe bombs to Democratic senators and stuff because they think that Democrats are raping, torturing, and drinking the adrenochrome from young kids. Like that's I feel like that the beginning of QAnon is where conspiracy theories stopped being fun and they started being like, so like people could get hurt here. Like a dude walked into there was the Comet Ping Pong Pizza place in DC, walked in with with an AR and
Oh
demanded that
yeah.
they demanded they take him to the basement so we can release all the sex slaves that are chained up. And the building doesn't have a basement.
Yeah.
Like there's video of them talking this guy out and him coming out and being like, oh, yeah, I could have swore it had a basement. Like no,
Yeah.
it's that's when it all stopped being fun, and now we've got consequences.
Well, I think the problem it was fun when your uncle was a conspiracy theorist and he had all
Your
these
uncle was a
he
conspiracy
is,
theorist. He
yeah.
wrote books on that stuff.
And
Yeah.
he has all these ideas
Mhm.
and you get to like joke around and laugh about it and
Well, but if somebody says like, "Hey, there's a secret military base on the moon and this and that," like that's fun. Let's get a telescope and go out there and try to find it. Like like I said,
It was on the dark side of the moon, Andy.
yeah, I wouldn't see it. Damn
And
it.
I mean, there's, and who knows? There's some truth to some of it. What you were going to say something about our JFK.
Oh, Jay. Phew. Yeah, the idea that Oswald. So I've shot a bolt action rifle before. Like I have a couple of them, and as lefty as I'm getting these days, I got a gun safe next to me with several rifles, and I'm not at all a good shooter, but I'm better than a lot of people that don't shoot. And like the thought that Oswald got off like what did he supposedly get off? Was it just there was 3 shots in
Three.
6 seconds with a bolt action rifle from 400 yards away to a moving target that's moving away from it at an angle, like bullsh Nikes. And even I've seen smart people that'll talk about the Zapruder film, the head goes back and to the left, but then they show reenactments and like they demo it up and like, oh, it could have been a shot from the back that made his head go back. I've kind of seen that. I just don't buy the whole thing. And I'm not saying the government is on it. I'm just saying more than one shooter, more than one person planning in every way. And then Jack Ruby kills him in the parking garage. Like, and yeah,
Do
I
you think the government is lying to us?
so the most compelling thing I've heard about that is I've read some stuff that would lead me to believe that I'm such a conspiracy theorist on this. But if Russia had a hand in it, let's say Russia just helped with some planning or some financing, or because Oswald was going back and forth to Russia, we don't really know why. If he was just a double agent, or if he was kind of working for them, like if you come out as say you have that evidence, if you come out as the government and say, hey, Russia was behind the assassination of our president, you have to then go to war.
Yeah.
Like, and we're in the middle of the Cold War and there's nukes and the Cuban Missile Crisis just happened. And do you sit on that information and just not give that info and say, yep, nope, it was that guy? Because going to war means possibly global thermonuclear destruction.
Yeah.
That that makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense to me. Like I got stuck on that one and I have no proof and I just it there's a lot of coincidences that don't work out right, but if you kind of look at it through that lens, all of a sudden it's like, oh, that actually makes a little sense.
So don't trust healthcare,
Doctors,
scientists,
yep.
your government, your
Hmm.
politicians, your doctors, your
You
who
you
can we
re-
trust these days?
you
Can we
can't
trust
trust
anyone?
anybody that's not on TikTok or Instagram. Like now, if you find a good
That's
account
true.
on Instagram or TikTok that seems to be telling you what you want to hear, like you should keep going with that. Like that's
As long as they're telling you what you want to hear, just keep
yeah,
going.
nothing. Yeah, that's what I've learned is I get sent clips all the time. Me and you send each other clips. I have like 5 buddies that I like. If I see a certain kind of funny clip, I'm like, oh,
I'm
that
not
clip's
on
going.
TikTok.
You're not. No, I'm not on TikTok either. But I get sent them, and when I open them, it goes to Safari, and like I can look at it through the internet browser or
Uh,
whatever. I don't know how computers work, but like I love it because I'll see a certain video, and I'm like, oh, that one's going to Docs, and other ones, I'm like, oh, that one's going to Marty. Like I kind of know who likes what. And then I have a couple people that just send me like pro Trump or pro RFK Jr. stuff. And like when I open it, the first thing is it's always a TikTok or an Instagram. So
mm,
I'm like, all right, before I even watch what's in here, who is this person? I click on them, and then okay, I normally kind of figure out a little. I go to Google on my desktop. Who is this person? And then like as soon as I'm like, okay, now I know that this person's not a serious person. Okay, let's see what they have to say, and then it'll be a very biased thing for one person or the other, and it's like I'm cool with this, but I hope that the person that sent me this isn't following it and like, yeah, this person really knows what they're talking about. Is it that, or are they telling you what you want to hear? Are you very aligned and you love the things that they post or report on? That's where I think the problem is, and it's the algorithm. It's not anybody's fault except for the morons running these companies. But like, if you're into 9/11, because the conspiracy type stuff, if you search that out on Instagram or TikTok, like you're gonna start getting fed that stuff constantly. Like every video you see is gonna be, the government was behind 9/11. There weren't even really planes. Whatever it is, you're gonna start getting fed that all the time, and then it's real hard to block it out, to not start going down that path.
yep.
It's
Yep.
ridiculous. So
I mean, I look at all like anytime I see that stuff, I'm just like, I watch it. I'm like, oh, that's bullshit. It's like
yeah,
listening to
so
right ring radio. It's like, oh, everything you say is just bullshit. Like, how does anybody believe anything you say when all
yeah,
you're spewing is total garbage?
you should. Let me say this because I was telling someone over the weekend. I was like, me and Doc's both like we kind of branch out and listen to right-wing stuff. And they were like, "Oh, well, what do you listen to? What is that?" And I said, "Oh yeah, Doc's listens to right-wing talk radio." And like their jaw dropped, and they were like, "So he only hears the extreme MAGA point of view. He doesn't ever hear like the rational Republican." And I realized that's what's wrong with you. Like the left likes to point all Republicans as QAnon, and the right likes to paint all the left as like the Squad or Antifa or anything like that.
Yeah.
And like I don't think you listen to any sensible Republican views at all. I think you hear what you hear what you want to hear about your left leaning stuff, and then you listen to right wing local talk radio, which is as far right as it can get.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, these Republicans are nuts.
They're fucking
Yeah, no,
crazy.
those Republicans are nuts. Like, but I
Yeah, but
think
who's listening to them? All Republicans listen to that shit.
no, I think most So I think when Rush Limbaugh was still around, they did, but I think today, not as many. I hope. I don't know. I'd like to hope.
Hannity has a show. I mean, he has to be.
Yeah, and
He
even
has to
on
have
his
viewers. He's got to make money, right?
Sirius XM show, he goes further to the right than he does
Big
on Fox
time.
News. Like he backs it up to like sensible.
The radio
So
stuff. I think that's where he like pitches his ideas. He's like kind of freeballing all these crazy ideas, and like once something kind of sticks, that's what he brings over to Fox and starts pitching that.
yeah, that you've said that for a while, but I'm truly thinking that's where they float out ideas and see
Yep.
what works, and
Yeah.
then kind of hone the message,
Yeah.
and then just take it to the people. And
Yeah. It's great. It's pretty crazy. That's why I like it, because it's kind of crazy. But I also listen to like the far left. I don't really listen to anything in the middle. I'll just listen
real
to
quick
both ends of the spectrum.
on messaging. I got to say this real quick. This has been my favorite thing, and we'll end on this note because I know you got to get up early. But my favorite thing in the last week is Democrats are terrible on messaging. Like they're historically terrible. Like even defund the police. I won't even sit here and try to like defend that. But it was the dumbest, like when certain people would go on and be like, well, like we really need to reimagine the way we do policing, and we need to put more money into blah, 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 blah. And they would explain it in a way where I'm like, oh, that's not that crazy. Like maybe I agree, maybe I don't, but like it's not abolish the police, but the way that they would say it was like abolish the police.
Yeah.
So they were historically bad at this. Trump comes out with very simple, I'm gonna build a wall, and then everybody has a shirt that says build a wall or a sign, and like he keeps it simple and repeatable. Okay. Democrats stumbled onto that this week. JD Vance was going through all his stuff, and I don't know who said it first, but somebody said like I think it was the governor of Minnesota, who is too far left for me, but I enjoy listening to him talk. And he goes, that guy's just weird. And like now, if you pay attention tomorrow, weird is a key word that they are saying. And it's funny because it's like it's simple, but it's kind of you know exactly what they're saying. And then tonight, Jesse Waters on his primetime show was like heated about it. He was like, so let me get this straight. Democrats make up a story that JD Vance has sex with his couch, and then they call him weird. And like he was like red in the face. And like I've heard every Democrat that I heard speak today said weird more than once.
Good.
And like it's odd because it's like, oh shit, they stumbled onto a message that's easily repeatable, and it's kind of picking up natural traction, and it's pissing the right off, which is hysterical. And like
I don't like that Waters guy.
Yeah, Waters is a little odd, but if I guarantee you they're paying like a think tank to come up with ideas for messaging, and like none of the ones they're going to pay for are going to be as good as this simple like, oh, those guys are weird. Like Trump goes over and hugs the flag. That's pretty weird, isn't it? Like that's just I say they stick with that because it's easy to remember and repeat, and it's easier to message. So
he's a weird guy. JD Vance is a weird guy. You should listen. Just listen to like the first 2 chapters of his book.
I don't want to. I'll be upset if he doesn't talk about his couch. It'll bother me. So, all right. You go fish tomorrow morning. I'll talk to you later, sir.
All right, brother. Have a good night.
You too. Later.